All right, everyone, welcome to our June National Virtual Chapter Meeting of Together Women Rise. I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces. I'm also happy to see some new people that are with us for the first time tonight. Welcome, family members of some of our speakers. and we are very happy to have you. These webinars began during COVID as a way to bring our members together when they couldn't meet in person, but now we find that they're an excellent way to share with people who maybe aren't that familiar with Together Women Rise, what we're all about. We are a community of women and allies who are dedicated to achieving global gender equality. We have chapters, most of which are in person, although they've been operating virtually over the last year, all over the country. We have a chapter in almost every state. And in our chapters, our members gather. Many of them do share a meal together, a sense of community. They learn about the challenges facing women and girls around the world, and then they take action through their collective giving to support grants that we make to organizations, grassroots organizations in low-income countries. We have supported projects in over 60 countries, all of them in some way supporting gender equality and women and girls. I just want to give a couple of brief Zoom tips, because I think by this point into the pandemic, we're all a little familiar with Zoom, but if I could ask you to keep yourself on mute while our speakers are talking. Please use the chat function, which you can find down at your bottom toolbar. Maybe on your screen it's at the top, but usually it's at the bottom. It says chat. You can open that up, say hello to everyone and where you're from. It's great to see how many different places we have represented on the meeting tonight. This is also a place where you can enter questions that you have for the speakers. Either we will be having some time for them to present, and then a Q&A session after that. So please pop your questions in there and say hello to your fellow participants tonight. The last thing, I will be spotlighting our speakers so that you will see them large in your screen. But if you would like to change your view at all, you should see a button that says view with a little waffle symbol beside it. If you click on that, you can either choose speaker, which means that you will see whoever is talking at that time, or gallery, which means you will see as many people as can fill the screen. And we've got several screens now. All right, so that's sort of our Zoom tips, our welcome. And please, if you are new, put that in the chat. And if you'd like to get more information, drop us your email address. We'd be happy to talk to you afterwards. So at these meetings and at chapter meetings at our hundreds of chapters across the US, we are all learning about the same projects in the month of June. We have two projects. One is a featured and one is a sustained. So first off, we're gonna learn about our featured project which is with Creamos in Guatemala. With this project, Together Women Rise is funding a treatment program for women who experience intimate partner violence and other forms of gender-based violence. These women live in the community surrounding the Guatemala City garbage dump, where violence, most of which is gender-based, is running rampant. We are going to start with showing our video about Creamos. Each of our featured grantees do provide us with a short video that can be shown at chapter meetings. So we're going to take a look at that, and then I'm going to introduce our speakers. So hang tight and I will share our video.
En la comunidad en que estamos, las mujeres son muy discriminadas y ha sido muy alta la violencia contra la mujer. He visto muchas compañeras de la comunidad que quieren separarse porque ya no aguantan por la violencia física y emocional. Mi mundo imaginario sería que todos los niños tuvieran las mismas oportunidades, las mamás estudiaran, un mundo sin violencia, un mundo sin maltrato. Este es el mundo que estamos creando en Creamos.
En Creamos pues ya tiene 14 años de estar. Nos llamaron para estudiar porque la mayoría no sabíamos leer ni escribir, y conforme nuestra asistencia a estudiar salió la idea de hacer bisutería. Yo antes trabajaba en el basurero y era un lugar muy peligroso, entonces vi la oportunidad que era mejor para mí, que iba a salir de ese lugar y iba a estar en un lugar mejor, más limpio, más aseado.
Here in the community surrounding the Guatemala City garbage dump, roughly 30,000 people make their living sifting through waste in search of items to recycle or resell. This is dangerous and inconsistent work that generates an average of $3 to $7 per day. Creamos exists to create safer and healthier futures for 200 women living in the community surrounding the Guatemala City garbage dump. 95% of participants at Creamos have experienced some type of violence throughout their lives, whether that be gender-based violence or intimate partner violence. To address these challenges, Creamos implemented an emotional support program that includes individual, group, and family therapy facilitated by licensed mental health professionals. When we're working with violence, we're never telling women what to do. We work alongside them to figure out what is the safest way for women to live with their children.
Cuando empecé, es algo difícil. No me creía capaz a lo que yo hago ahora. Ahora me creo mucho, no creerme mucho así que yo sé mucho, sino que somos capaces de hacer mucho.
Creamos me ha ayudado a cambiar mi nivel económico, y también me ha enseñado a ser más humana, a estar dispuesta a ayudar a quien lo necesite, porque yo he tenido esa ayuda.
Here in Creamos, we really have cultivated a community of women who not only support each other in the classroom or in their work. We're a place where we've seen women overcome deeply rooted conflict to look out for each other.
Yo me siento orgullosa de pertenecer a Creamos. Ahora me siento que valgo como mujer. Soy abuela orgullosa y me llena de orgullo ver que mis hijos salieron de la violencia y salimos, más que todo rompimos el límite de estar en lo que era el basurero antes. Ya no es tiempo de soportar, es tiempo de decir yo valgo, yo soy alguien.
All right. Wow, it's amazing when you come back from the video and you see this huge screen of faces. It's awesome. All right, I'm happy to introduce our speakers for tonight from Creamos. I'd like to tell you a little bit about them. Hannah Sklar is the Executive Director. Hannah graduated from George Mason University with a bachelor's degree in social work and a minor in Spanish in 2010. When she graduated, she moved to Guatemala to volunteer with Safe Passage, Creamos' sister organization. She started out working with children, but quickly transitioned to working exclusively with the mothers of the adult education program, as well as with Creamos, which at that time was a very small recycled jewelry initiative. Hannah spent the next 3 years helping to grow the Creamos business, and began offering basic emotional support and exercise services for participants in 2013. sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Began offering exercise services for participants. In 2013, my apologies, she returned to New York City and pursued her master's degree in social work. And then she returned to Guatemala in 2015 to implement CREAMO's emotional support program. She became executive director in 2018. Welcome, Hannah. Kelsey Komich is also here from CREAMOS. She is the director of emotional support programs. Kelsey is a licensed clinical social worker from Maine. She began her postgraduate career also working for Safe Passage, and she was an English teacher. Later, she was promoted to English coordinator while also working with the Family Nurturing Program. In 2015, she returned to the United States. Boy, Hannah and Kelsey, your backgrounds sound awfully familiar, awfully similar. She returned to the US and to receive her master's in social work with a concentration in clinical and global social work. She returned to work in a community health center in Massachusetts, one for Central American immigrants. She facilitated outpatient group and individual therapy in both the clinic and local public schools. And she's also served as the case manager and therapist for a refugee clinic in Detroit, Michigan. She returned to CREAMOS in 2019 to work providing individual and group therapy. Welcome, Kelsey. All right, Hannah and Kelsey, I'd love to turn it over to you now to share with our participants tonight.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And I just want to thank everyone on this call. The opportunity to be part of a community that supports so much incredible work is humbling, and we're so grateful to be a part of it. So I am going to begin by providing some background on how the project that we're doing for Together Women Rise came into fruition. So CREAMOS began solely as a income generating program. And although we have been in existence from 2008, we quickly began to see that in order for women to achieve financial freedom, we needed to provide more than just an income. And as we began to grow, we saw hundreds of women in the community that we work that were walking through our doors, that were living in isolation, that were experiencing violence, and that really didn't have access to services. Some of the dangers that these women face are overt, including violent acts of physical and sexual violence, while others result from more subtle forms of gender-based violence, including high rates of teen pregnancy, single motherhood, low self-esteem, and a lack of financial independence. So in 2015, we implemented CREAMOS's emotional support program, and the whole development of the program was based off of participant feedback. So we did a huge community-wide survey with all of the women that we could, and we decided to develop this very small, humble emotional support program. And a huge part of it was breaking the stigma that exists in so many marginalized communities of mental health. And I'm really excited for everyone to hear how this program has developed. And in partnership with Together Women Rise, we are able to focus on such a prevalent and horrible challenge that exists for so many women in our community. So I'm going to pass it over to Kelsey, who is going to explain more about the project.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Wendy. Thank you, everyone on this call. Hello, family members. Thank you for participating. Wendy, you mentioned that our resumes were pretty similar, and Hannah and I, since we met, we pretty much had this dream of coming back to CREAMOS and creating this program, and now I feel like we can both say that it's really taking off and becoming something much more than just a humble the humble beginning, and that has a lot to do with the partnership with Together Women Rise. So thank you so much for this opportunity. We're very happy to be here. So like Hannah said, we have been around for Creamos Voces is the name of our program, which is our emotional support program. And we've been around for 6 years. And with this opportunity, we've been really able to grow our programs and expand the groundwork that we have laid in the previous years through participation in all of our intakes that we've done. So Hannah and Wendy did a great job of defining intimate partner violence and gender-based violence. So I will be mentioning both of those terms. IPV is intimate partner violence and GBV is gender-based violence. And just to talk about our few of our individual programs that we offer in emotional support. So we're a tiny team of 3. We have 2 psychologists and I'm the therapist. And this grant is really coming into our hands at such an opportune time, especially due to the pandemic. We've really seen significant increases in physical, sexual, emotional, economic violence, as well as increased mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and suicidality. So with this partnership, we're really being able to offer much more therapeutic as well as psychoeducational, so which means just educational, non-therapeutic groups and courses for in our installations, as we call them, in our buildings. So obviously during the pandemic, we had to shut everything down, and we were working very creatively through trying to offer telehealth and support in ways that we could, but it was very difficult just due to access. As you can imagine, internet and access to smartphones and access to a quiet, confidential space really just isn't available to everyone that we work with. So we're very happy to be slowly able to offer in-person groups and individual treatment. So like I said, through this partnership right now, we're able to offer individual psychotherapy as well as group and family therapy and psychoeducational groups and financial literacy groups. So all of these are working from a framework of working within and treating IPV and GBV. So whether it's a psychoeducational group for parents who have children in certain cases, or they're in unhealthy or violent relationships, we're working from that framework of treating the intimate partner violence, safety planning with the family, or if it's a financial literacy group, that group was also started with the intent in mind of women being able to become economically or financially independent. And that's one of the biggest reasons we see folks staying in relationships that aren't healthy for them and their families. So, and then in individual and group therapy, we always come from that lens also. So, yeah, so that's what we've been up to right now, and that's what we've been able to, and like I said, we're being able to accomplish much more with this collaboration with Together Women Rise, and we're just so grateful. Our therapists and psychologists are actually able to get more training, continuing education. We're taking a lot of trainings together to deepen our understanding and improve our treatments and interventions. So we're just happy to be here and happy to answer any questions that all of you might have about specific programs. So thank you so much.
So Kelsey and Hannah, one of the things that we're always asking about is how COVID is impacting your program specifically and the community of women that you serve. And maybe adding on to that as well, there's a question about what is the availability of the COVID vaccine in Guatemala right now?
Yeah, so it's been a really hard year, like it has for the rest of the world. At the beginning, a lot of the challenges that the community faced really came to light. For example, access to water. Through the first 3 months of the pandemic, our community did not have access to water. And so when people are talking about, hygienic protocols that you need to follow, it's really difficult to do that when you don't have water. It's really difficult to do that when you live in communities where social distancing is impossible. And I think, as we all know, social distancing is a privilege. So we had a lot of challenges with the health system. We had a lot of the Creamos participants that were experiencing very obvious signs of COVID, losing sense of smell, losing sense of taste. They would go to the health center and they wouldn't test them. So it's interesting because I think that COVID has been such a shift for the whole entire world. Throughout the pandemic, they also shut down the garbage dump. So a lot of people were not able to work during that time. So what was happening is people were paying people to sneak them into the dump in order for them to make a living. In Guatemala, we also had curfews for the first 6 to 8 months of the virus. So for example, for those people that were sneaking into the dump and we had a 4 o'clock curfew, a lot of people were actually staying and sleeping in the dump because they couldn't manage to get out on time. So there was a real lack of testing. Hospitals are still at 100% capacity right now with the vaccine rollout. Last week we were at 0.4% of the population was vaccinated. However, right now they just opened up vaccine registration to people 50 and up. We do have a few participants that have been vaccinated that are over 65. And I think in Creamos, one of the programs that Kelsey's managing right now that I'm so proud of is a community promoter program. So right now we have hired 3 women who received vaccine education, and they are now going out into the community and fighting myths on the COVID vaccine. So it's complex because people don't have a lot of examples of people that are getting vaccine, and there's genuine fear about it. So that is the COVID question.
Thank you so much for that information. Another question we have, are participants in the program eventually able to move into housing away from the city dump?
I can take that one. So being a trained social worker in the United States and then coming to work in the Guatemala City garbage dump community looks a lot different in terms of access to public services. So in terms of housing or even food stamps or food services or financial relief if you're divorced, if you're looking for child support, sometimes exist, but definitely not in any way that really is able to take care of the folks that we're working with in the community. So and especially in terms of safe housing, in terms of shelters, there's not really widely available shelters for those who are experiencing domestic violence, whether it's gender-based or IPV. And there's not, and especially in our community, it's called a red zone because of the area that we're at. It's extremely dangerous. So there's a lot of discrimination against the people that live in the neighborhood. So oftentimes they'll be denied services because of the address that they give someone or because of the area that they live in. So unfortunately, housing is not a service that we have. If somebody's able to move away from the neighborhood, it's usually with a family member or a person that they know who's able to offer them safe housing, but it's not a public service that we're able to offer.
Did you want to add something, Hannah?
Yeah, I'll add something quick. And it's also, I think, one of the biggest learnings that I have had is that even though the community is riddled with so many social and emotional challenges, there's also a lot of strengths in the community. And I think that we have women that have incredible relationships with their neighbors and they have family, they've grown up here, right? So I think that we always are so supportive of when people mention, we want to move out, it's not safe for our family here. And like Kelsey said, unfortunately, we can help women in financial literacy and manage budgets, but one of our jobs is also to keep women safe and to respect if they don't want to move and they want to stay near their family and their kids and generations of families that have lived in the community. So it's a complicated question, definitely.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the next question. How does telehealth work in your community?
Kelsey, you.
Sorry, my audio just cut out, so I actually didn't hear the question.
No problem. The question is, how does telehealth work in your community?
Okay, well, you all just got a beautiful example of internet in Guatemala City. So, and I have pretty good internet in my house. So, telehealth, unfortunately, isn't something that we really were able to be successful with. I was doing sessions on the phone, but in terms of being able to find a confidential, quiet space, I don't know any person who I work with that doesn't live with at least 3 people, and that's usually within 1 or 2 rooms of the house. So the thing that I've been most grateful for going back to my office is the actual physical space that I work in, that I have a door that I can close and it can be quiet, because that just wasn't a reality with anybody I was working with. So we got very creative in terms of talking over WhatsApp, which is an application that you can use to message back and forth. You can also send voice notes. So we did a lot of kind of assistance through WhatsApp, but again, it's not 100% confidential. And if somebody is in a dangerous situation, the best option for them is not to do telehealth in their house. So we had to be really creative about the way we could access help.
Great. And WhatsApp is something that we find many of our grantees speak of, that it's used widely in, providing online services and whatnot. How are you helping younger girls reduce the potential violence in their future?
I can start and then Hannah can probably continue. So a really beautiful new program that we've been working with in our in Creamos is our education program. I almost said adult education, but it's actually just an education program because we have had a big influx of younger folks coming in to study with us. So basically, if you have educational gaps, if you haven't studied for 6 years, you got pregnant when you were 14, you had to take off time from school, you can come back and study with us. So we actually have a lot more access to younger folks than we did before. So now, which means that we're able to offer programming for them. So we have, we're offering individual and group programs for younger women, and we have really strong connections with community resources that offer family planning, like early childhood development for their children, hygiene programs. So we are, I would say one of the ways that we're helping younger women, not prevent violence in their lives and their children's lives is offering education and offering services at an earlier time and really trying to break the cycles, having these hard conversations, today we had a really hard and kind of myth busting conversation about going to the gynecologist because pap smears are kind of taboo here. So it's kind of whenever these things arise in programs, we often talk about how we're breaking the cycle of I'm able to have the conversation that my mom wasn't able to have with me. And that in turn is preventing violence and breaking a cycle of not having the education and not having the tools to equip myself and to keep myself safe. So I don't know if Hannah, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I will. My answer is also going to touch a bit on Yvonne's question as well. I think one of the ways that we support younger girls is through their moms. We have done a lot of learning, unlearning, and relearning with the women that we work with, and having them and preparing them and working alongside them to have these difficult conversations with their daughters about puberty, about sex ed, about violence. And we do role plays, we have groups about it, and we get into the weeds about why these conversations are so difficult. Kelsey and her team work a lot with family nurturing, and so I think we try to address it from what Kelsey was talking about by working directly with younger girls, but also trying to approach it from a parent point of view and unpacking all of reasons in the childhood of the women that we work with and how that's affecting them as parents. And one of the ways I think we help is by partnering with other organizations in the community. We work with one organization called, in English, the name doesn't sound as Guatemala Initiative. Iniciativa Guatemala is the name of it, and they work with family planning and teens who are pregnant. So I think we are very aware as an organization that we cannot do everything. And the beautiful thing about this organization is that they are around the block. So I know Kelsey and I have taken many walks grabbing people by the arm in arm, and walking with them and making sure that we've done a lot of work with them, making sure that they are a trustworthy service. And we are so careful about who we refer our CRAMAS participants to, because we try to be so intentional with every component of our services, from what happens when people walk into the door. And we want to make sure that they're getting that same empathy and intention when they walk through someone else's door. So again, I think part of helping and supporting other populations that are in our target population is also knowing who we are and knowing who could potentially do things better.
That's awesome. I think that does address, hopefully, Yvonne's questions about partnering with other organizations, and about the high rates of pregnancy in Guatemala, and just the lack of sexual and reproductive health programs. So thank you for adding all of that in. And I would encourage, if you're able to, there's one more question here. How do you track your activities and tie activities to outcomes? And what success have you demonstrated in your program?
Yeah, Jennifer, that's a great question. And I think it's something that throughout the years we've dramatically improved on. As Kelsey mentioned, every year, every single participant that participates in any of CRAMAS's program goes through a huge annual assessment where we evaluate demographic info, living info. We have this is where me and Kelsey's social work background really comes into play through this evaluation. We have a social support, we have a social support scale, we have a loneliness scale. We have, I think, 2 violence screenings in there. We have a financial self-efficacy, we have a financial independence scale. There's definitely more in there. And so we do have a participant database that we track every single participant, and we can add, we track it every year. So before the database, it's been a lot of work, and we have amazing people that are doing the work to put previous evaluations into the database. And now we're able to track progress, which has been amazing. And I think one of the biggest successes that we have is that now 88% of women that have participated in financial literacy now have bank accounts. And although this may seem like a really small step, women having control over their own finances is one of the most important things. And we provide transport to the bank, and we provide the $3 that it takes to open a bank account. We have seen huge increases in social support, and due to anecdotal evidence and communicating with participants, one of the big reasons for that is Zumba class. So every day we offer a daily exercise class, which is fun, but there is intention behind it. And when most privileged of us privileged people get stressed, what do? We exercise, we go for a run, we sweat it out. And a lot of times people in marginalized communities don't have access to an exercise class. So even though a lot of our job is really heavy, and Yvonne, I think you touched on the big things, toxic masculinity, harmful gender and cultural norms. But we know that every day participants have access to a safe, light space. And I think one of the most beautiful things is what happens after that Zumba class. So, you know, we talk about how hard the workout is. We talk together in little circles, and that I think is just a little bit of a rant on the social support component. But I would say that increase in financial independence and self-efficacy and increase in social support has been a huge, has been really evident forms of success of what we've seen.
Well, that's incredible. 88% have a bank account. That's incredible. I think we'll have to invite you back to come and do a Zumba class for us. That would be awesome. It looks like everyone in your video is having so much fun. I want to thank you both very much for being with us tonight. It is clear how passionate you both are about this work that you're doing, and it just shines through. And I know we all felt it, and we appreciate you sharing it, and we're happy, very happy to be able to work with you and partner on this project, and look forward to hearing about the results. So thank you for being with us tonight, and thank you to your family members for joining us and learning about our organization. If you're able to stay on, I sometimes will encourage, if anyone does have any other questions, or I can see that they're putting, comments in, usually praising, praising you about the work you're doing. You can keep your eye on the chat and maybe answer some questions, or put your website address up there for the participants if they would like to get more information. But now I would like to turn to our sustained grantee, which is a longer term investment that we make in an organization that we've previously funded with a featured grant. So this is a 3-year grant that we give them, $25,000 a year for 3 years. And it is, someone that we're quite familiar with, that we know has been successful in the past, and that is certainly the case for our sustained grantee this month, Ripple Africa. We've had a long history of partnering with Ripple Africa. We first awarded them a grant in 2015, and now they are our sustained grantee for the month of June. You probably all remember, and those of you who are new to us, you will hear about the Changu Moto Cook Stove, which is a fuel efficient, environmentally friendly, safer, much more economically beneficial, and it is empowering women in Malawi in so many ways. This sustained grant is going to allow Ripple Africa to put more than 5,700, to put these cook stoves into 5,700 more households in Malawi, which is incredible. I am thrilled to have Kay Yoder here, who is the Director of U.S. Operations for Ripple Africa, but I got to put the plug in. She also wears a second hat, which is Together Women Rise regional leader in Florida. Our regional leaders are crucial to Together Women Rise, and Kay has only been on the job for a while, but she's also served as a chapter leader of the Sarasota Bradenton 1 chapter, and she has also served us as a chapter mentor, helping new chapters get started. At Ripple Africa, she's responsible for educating and connecting passionate individuals and companies who desire to make a meaningful difference with Ripple Africa's projects in Malawi. She was also the co-founder, I believe with her daughter, if I've got this story right, of Taking Back Lives, a nonprofit organization focused on providing educational opportunities for students in Malawi. And I think all of this, if I'm remembering your story right, this all came about as a result of a trip that you took with your daughter to Malawi. Is that correct?
Actually, it was a
Correct.
grandmother and granddaughter that we met. And then my daughter went when she was 16 to volunteer at an orphanage that the grandmother had been involved with. And she came back and didn't let it go. And so we started our organization and needed to find a partner on the ground. We partnered with Ripple Africa for several years. She then went on to medical school and knew her involvement with lessons. So we officially merged, and I now just oversee the US side of operations. So.
Well, thank you for filling in your story. I had bits and pieces, but clearly
you did well. You did very well.
There, but Kay is also actively involved in her local Rotary Club, and she has played an instrumental role. I think she said she's been president over the past year of Rotary in her area. So, I mean, this woman wears a lot of hats, let me tell you, and I thoroughly enjoy working with her on our regional leader team. And I now turn it over to you, Kay.
Thank you. I am going to share my screen here. Let's hope I can do this here. There we go. All righty. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. Together Women Rise is just an organization that is so near and dear to my heart, and Ripple Africa is as well. So it is my extreme honor to be here tonight and to represent Ripple Africa in our third and final year of this project. I can't believe it. Thanks to the support of all of you as Together Women Rise members, almost 6,000 fuel-efficient cook stoves have been provided for this sustaining grant to women in Malawi, Africa. So before I give you a refresher about the specifics of the project and our progress, I'd really like to quickly review the country and some of the issues facing this country, and then how the Cook Stove Project is really addressing an important need there. For those of you who may not be familiar with Malawi, it's this tiny, tiny little country located in southeastern Africa that shares borders with Zambia, Tanzania, and Mozambique. It is one of the most densely populated countries in the world, and it's growing so rapidly. Currently, there are 19 million people who live there. And to put this in perspective, if you look at neighboring Zambia, it's 6 times larger in land mass, but it has 3 million less people. This rapid growth that Malawi is experiencing is really draining their resources, and this is having a devastating impact on the environment and everyday life there. So about 85% of the population live in rural areas like this, and the average income is just over $1 a day, ranking Malawi as one of the most impoverished and least developed countries in the world. 95% of the population rely on wood for everyday cooking, and the majority cook on a 3-stone fire like you see here. Each and every week, women have to collect 3 bundles of wood, like you see, to cook. And this takes considerable time as women need to travel further and further to find the much needed firewood as the nearby sources have been depleted. Because of the very large, rapidly growing population and this overdependence on wood for everyday survival, this is what Malawi once looked like, but it is disappearing and looks more like this today. Severe deforestation, such as this, is causing droughts and flooding throughout the rainy season. For the majority of people who survive as subsistent farmers, this is just a huge concern. In addition to the overdependence on wood because of the 3-stone fire, smoke inhalation for the women and their children is prevalent. which causes a lot of respiratory illnesses, not to mention the risk of burns caused because of those open flames. Well, Ripple Africa, we're working really hard to address these issues by taking a multifaceted approach, since there are more than one contributing factors. So one of our first approaches is to protect Malawi's existing forests from further destruction. So we start off by educating the local communities about the importance of protecting their forest. And then we work in partnerships with these communities and the district government staff to protect forests from the illegal practice of cutting down trees in these designated areas. The good news is that with these protective measures in place, these forests do regenerate over time. In addition to protecting the forest, we also replenish the much needed tree to meet the demand for cooking and building. And we accomplish this by providing community groups and local farmers, schools, individuals with all of the equipment, the training, and the support that they need to plant and grow trees as a sustainable source of firewood and timber. By doing so, the need to cut down trees in forest areas is then eliminated. To date, we've planted over 17 million trees, and ours is one of the largest and most successful tree planting projects in Malawi. And then finally, our fuel-efficient cook stove, which we'll be talking about in more detail, reduces Malawi's reliance on wood for everyday cooking. As Wendy said, it's called the Chengu Chengu Moto, which means quick fire. And this simple cook stove cuts the need for firewood by 2/3. In addition, it's also safer because of its enclosed design, and it produces less smoke. So this holistic approach that we take of protecting the existing forest from further destruction, replenishing trees to satisfy the wood demand, and then reducing the overall need for firewood for cooking has really proven to be very successful. And it is making a real difference in Malawi in this fight against deforestation and climate change. So let's now shift our focus to the project that you all have supported. So we're going to be taking a look at a short video which shows what's involved with the building of these stoves, and then the many, many lives that have been impacted because of Together Women Rise. Let's see. See if I can get it to work. Oh, well.
I have it all ready to go, Kay, if you'd like me to share my screen.
Sure, go ahead. I don't know why it's not clicking. It did all day, but go ahead.
Of course, that's how it works.
That's the way it goes.
Okay, if you can stop sharing your screen just for,
Or
great. All right, here we go.
Together, women rise. When you all work together to protect the environment.
Okay, I'm just going to go back then to, all righty. Let's see if I can get those to advance. Okay, so as you saw in the video, and didn't you love the music? It's really hard for me to sit still during that music. The cook stove is really easy to build, and it uses just easily found materials for the construction of it, making it a very cost-effective alternative. And it's really important to note that the women receiving the stoves are involved in the process throughout the construction of it, so they know exactly how to maintain it and repair it long term. You know, one important aspect of the project that isn't touched upon in the video is the monitoring and the extensive record keeping, like shown here, that takes place before, during, and after the construction of the stoves. And once these stoves are complete, our staff performs regular site visits so that they can troubleshoot any issues householders are experiencing, and to really ensure that the use of the stove becomes a part of life. We're happy to report that despite COVID, we are on target to complete this project on time within the next year. But even more important, the women have just so enthusiastically embraced this new method of cooking. They're constantly commenting about its safety and the amount of time that they are saving, both in wood collection and in actual cooking. But I don't want you to take my word for it. I invite you to come see this project firsthand. Now, dates we're working on these dates. Oops, let me go back. Originally, there was a trip to Malawi that was planned for October of this year, but due to COVID concerns, it's being postponed. And these are the dates we're targeted, but it's not etched in stone yet. But I invite all of you to go to the website, and even though the dates haven't been changed, you can go and see exactly what's going to take place on this 10-day adventure. You're going to spend some time at Ripple Africa's base on beautiful Lake Malawi, seeing some of our projects in action. And you're going to meet some of the people who have earned Malawi its reputation as the warm heart of Africa. You are going to fall in love with this country. You'll also witness and enjoy a traditional meal prepared by Malawian women such as these, using their chengu chengu moto, and have the chance to get your own hands dirty by constructing an actual cook stove. I promise you it's going to be a really memorable experience, and I hope to see many of you there. Again, you can go and look at the website to see all of the details, including the two other past grantees, Age Africa and Gaia, that people will be visiting during this 10-day trip. In closing, I just really like to reiterate what the support of Together Women Rise has meant over these past years, especially for me. It's said that caring people really can change the world. And as cliche as that sounds, I do believe that's true. So I'd like to thank all of you, Together Women Rise members, for caring about the importance of this project and the faith that you've placed in Ripple Africa these past years. I can say emphatically that because of your caring and your support, the lives of many, many women and their families in Malawi have been dramatically impacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. That was an amazing presentation. And yes, I've put up the link to our travel page, and I would encourage everyone to check out the awesome itinerary for this trip and join us. Together Women Rise trips are truly life-changing. So we do have a couple of questions in the chat, and I encourage, if anyone has any additional questions, please put them in there. First question we have is, you mentioned how the population of Malawi was expanding so significantly. What is causing this influx to the population when there are larger countries like Zambia right next door that could really accommodate, increased people much more than Malawi, where, there are limited resources.
Well, Malawi is very lacking in healthcare, and the availability of family planning and sexual health resources. In fact, that is kind of the fourth part of our holistic approach at how to really tackle the environmental challenges. There is, we do have a sexual health and family planning project in which we do try to address large families and the burden that can place not only financially on the family, but also on the resources such as the trees and the lake and all of the fish that have been depleted by overfishing. So it basically comes down to, I think, education and girls' education, keeping girls in school longer, because it delays the onset of when they have children and get married. So we have a girls' boarding school to try to encourage that. So it's just kind of that vicious cycle, but it really starts with education. Birth control is available, but you have to really get the men on board. So we don't only focus on the women, we're focusing on the men and couples, and we're starting in primary school and hitting the secondary school, and then working upward from there.
Wow, I didn't realize you had those additional programs. You guys are doing a little bit of everything. Another question is, how long does each stove last before it needs to be replaced?
Well, that really depends on weather, because it is made, these are unfired bricks. And so basically people use a kind of a mixture of sand and manure and water, and they put them in brick molds, then they let them dry completely. So you can imagine that with rain, they are going to break down. So it really depends on how weatherproof your kitchen is. Most Malawian kitchens are outside of the home and they're kind of an open air structure. We try very hard to make sure that everyone's kitchen is weatherproofed with a nice thatch roof of some kind so that they're not going to break down immediately. But because of deforestation and flooding during the rainy season, floods will come through and wipe the stoves out. But the best news is they know how to remake them, and so, or how to repair them. So it really depends on the climate and then the condition of the kitchen where they're located.
Well, Kay, thank you so very, very much. I want to just mention, I think once again, my memory is horrible, but Sue Fernbach, wasn't it a chapter in the Asheville area that actually constructed one of these Changu as part of their chapter meeting?
Yes. And I saw Sue. Is she still here? I'm not seeing everybody, but yes, they did. And that just, made me so incredibly happy.
So let no one ever say that Together Women Rise members won't get their hands a little dirty.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's exactly
awesome.
right. It was one of our members' husbands, and we cooked on it at that meeting. So
you did.
It was a lot of fun.
That is so amazing.
If anybody wants to do that guide is on our website. So, or you can email me and I'll send you that guide, and you're welcome to make one.
That's awesome. I'd love to see pictures of anyone who gives that a try. Well, Kay, thank you very, very much for all of the work that you do with Refuel Africa, with Together Women Rise, with the Rotary. We are lucky to have you, and you're a great resource for us from both the member and the grantee perspective, and we enjoyed your presentation tonight. So we are about ready to wrap up for the evening. Couple of upcoming events. Our July National Virtual Chapter Meeting will be July the 1st. It is, we do try to hold it the first Thursday of every month unless there is, some holiday or celebration that interferes with that. So July 1st, our July projects are in Cameroon, and our Sustain project is the collateral repair project in Jordan. Our book club, if you have not participated in that, we have had some amazing events, and we'll be having some more this summer. June 21st is a book called A Hope More Powerful Than the Sea. I think I even have it right here to hold it up. And it is a story about a refugee's story of love, loss, and survival by Melissa Fleming. And that is going to be taking place June 21st, 8 p.m., which is one day after World Refugee Day on June 20th. We thought this would be appropriate. We're having a very, very special book club event in August. I don't know whether you can see these, but if you can, we are going to have Irene Butter, who is a peace activist and a Holocaust survivor. She spent some time in Bergen-Belsen at the same time as Anne Frank, new Anne Frank, and she has written this book, Shores Beyond Shores, and is coming to speak to our members on August the 11th. The connection and the reason we got this incredible woman to come and speak to us is Chris Holloway. If any of you remember our book club meeting, Monique and the Mango Rains, and Chris Holloway, the author, well, Chris and her husband, John, co-wrote this book with Irene, and Chris is going to interview Irene. Irene has some incredible messages to share with us that are relevant today as well. She truly believes in the power of one individual making a difference, which is very much Together Women Rise motto, and also the idea of that you can't just stand by and watch injustice happen. So please come out and meet Irene. I'm so excited about that. Our June advocacy webinars with results will be June 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern and June 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So try to make that available to East Coast and West Coast people. Our partner Results, which is an advocacy organization, grassroots advocacy organization, a group of citizens that advocate for global poverty. Their international conference is June 12th to the 13th. I'd encourage you to check that out. And my last little tip is simply to, if you have not been getting Together Women Rise emails like our newsletter, The Dish, or other email communications, it may be ending up in your spam or junk folder. When we changed our name in March and our email addresses to togetherwomenrise.org instead of diningforwomen.org, your email program may be sending that to spam or to junk. Please check your folders, and there is a way that you can make togetherwomenrise.org a safe sender so that it doesn't end up there. We're trying to spread that word everywhere. Tell your chapter members we want everyone to be able to still get our newsletters and other communications. Thank you so much to our speakers and to everyone for attending tonight. Look forward to seeing you later this month at our book club gathering and next month at our virtual chapter meeting. Take care, everyone.
Night.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Hi, Mom.
much. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.